right. Hey, April. Thank you so much for coming on today. So glad to see you. How's everything going?
Everything's going great. Thanks for having me, Cassandra. I'm excited for us to chat.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So, where are you originally from, and where do you reside now?
I'm originally from Delaware, and that's where I reside. However, I
Oh,
travel everywhere, but I stay here.
nice. Okay, that's good. Okay, so I believe that you're in real estate, but I want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing and are currently doing outside of real estate. So, just a little bit professionally about what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So for over the last 2 decades, I've been in executive search, so recruiting, and it's evolved from engineering and IT to scientific to the last, I'd say maybe 10 years, specifically in management consulting. So what I do is I identify talent for us to acquire in a private equity backed management consulting firm that I work for.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
Um, yeah. Okay, so then how did you get into real estate? What was the what sparked that?
Well, probably about 17 years ago or so, my husband and I, we went to a Robert Kiyosaki event and we're like, oh, wow, this sounds really exciting. And of course, we've just been into like trying to have like more than one home and building wealth and just expanding beyond that because we have 5 kids, 2 grandkids, and one on the way. So we're just thinking about building a legacy and things that we can pass on to our kids and grandkids. And so, well, we weren't thinking about that 17 years ago, but that's what it's evolved to today.
Yeah.
But that kind of like sparked our interest. And we've explored other like mentorships or programs in the past, and we haven't really participated in them, but we've, kind of stayed in tune and in touch with the industry and a lot of the, I guess, the thought leaders and people who kind of lead the way in that particular industry. And then more recently, back in April, we actually joined a community. We decided
Oh,
to join Pace Morby's community, which was just seemed like it just aligned with our style of learning and our style of doing business. And so here we are taking it a little bit more seriously. And then also about a year ago, I'd probably say the other thing that had that enhanced focus on real estate is
mhm.
outside of our own personal transactions of buying and selling and renovating and selling. We also purchased some property in Portugal near my brother. So we completed a foreign land transaction
Wow.
about a year ago that we're building on. And we're like, well, we're doing it. Let's just get serious here while we're doing it there. And so that's how we initiated our real estate journey.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, that was a loaded response. But
Yeah.
first, I will say you are the youngest grandmother that I have had on this podcast for sure. So, kudos to you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I know you mentioned that deal in Portugal that you all have. What would you say was the most difficult part about that?
Well, it took a long time to get complete because we started it in 2019 and then everything happened in the world and the world shut down. And so we had to pick it back up and we were actually able to get it complete in a year ago, August. And I'd say probably the most difficult part is the unknowns because it's not like it is in the US. I'd say the number one most difficult thing is there is no escrow. And
Mm,
so, because it was a land purchase and you can't finance a land purchase as a foreigner, you have to pay cash for it. So, for the land that we bought, we had to wire the seller the entire amount a couple days before settlement, just
wow.
crossing our fingers like
Yeah.
but my brother had purchased his property from this same seller 5 years ago, and he knew him and, they became friends, and that's just customary there, and I was just kind of like, "That's crazy," and
Wow.
so we did that anyway, and I'd say the second most challenging thing is, in Portugal, and I think it stems from previously, Portugal was a communist country, maybe in the '60s or '70s, I have
Mhm.
to look that up for sure, but as a result of that, there were a lot of people who couldn't read and write. Lots of people can read and write there today. I mean, that's not the case, but it's an old tradition that
Yeah.
kind of passed through. And what the old tradition is all of your settlement documentation, all of your purchase documentation is read to you in Portuguese. So people understand what they're getting into. And so you sit there for 2 hours while all of your mortgage or all of your purchase documents are read to
Wow.
you in Portuguese, whether you understand Portuguese or not.
Yeah.
They can say, "We told you." And so,
Wow.
yeah, I just thought that was interesting, and I didn't expect it. I was just kind of like, "Wow, well,
Yeah,
okay."
you're like, all right, everything's fine, we're done. They're like, actually, no, we're gonna read this line by
Yes, yes. And you don't know how long it's going to be, and you
Wow.
just it's like this infinite appointment.
Yeah, no, that's an
Yeah.
experience though. I think it'd be
Mhm.
cool though if have you documented that whole process?
Well, that's what we're in the process of doing, and
Yeah,
so my brother and I are actually documenting that to help people
yeah,
after us, because
yeah,
there's a lot of lessons to be learned, a lot of things that you could avoid, and a lot of not necessarily shortcuts, but if you know this, you save yourself a lot of time.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
basically, just quick hacks that nobody would be able to get otherwise if they hadn't gone through that process. So
Yes.
I think that would be tremendous
Mhm.
value.
Mhm.
Okay, so you mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, you mentioned Pace. Who, I guess, would you say has taught you the most about real estate?
I'd say Pace for sure, because
Okay.
it was Robert Kiyosaki, and then there was I looked into some things that Grant Cardone had, and I just never really like dove too deep into it. And then I think for sure Pace's stuff,
Mhm.
because it's easy to consume, it's easy to understand. He's got a ton of it, and then when you go through the courses, it's like, okay, this makes sense, and it's really good way for at least us to follow, like step by step what to do, and how to proceed and get things done and get deals initiated. So it's
Yeah.
more like hands-on type of
Okay.
thing, which works for us.
Okay. Well, shout out to
Mhm.
you, Pace.
Yeah,
I
shout out.
I don't know if you're a bookworm, but in real
Mhm.
estate specifically, was there any book that I guess stood out to you, or well, even in mindset too?
Mm.
Was there any book that stood out to you the most?
Yeah, so I love to read. I love audiobooks. I would say real estate specific, more around the I guess the accounting principles, because the book Profit First is one of the ones that I've read most recently,
Yeah.
and it just helped me be able to categorize all of the things, because we've
Yeah.
owned businesses in the past and currently own other businesses as well, and that's always been like a challenge, as far as like the best way to do all of that. And
Yeah.
so as a result of learning real estate, it was one of those like add-on recommended reads that I was super thankful for. And I think that
Yeah.
helps me tremendously in that area.
Yeah.
And then also, well, of course, I have Pace's book. I have Jamil's book on wholesaling. Jamil
Mhm.
Dancy has a wholesaling book. So I've read both of those. I'd say they have a lot of information, and you can use them as like a reference guide. Like you can flip through them and like look stuff up, which is cool.
Yeah. Those
Hmm.
are definitely some great books.
Hmm.
Okay, I now, it with being in real estate and having done some transactions, what would you say is your most favorite failure? I'll word it like that.
I would say where I probably learned the
Yeah.
most is actually a foreclosure.
Oh, okay.
So, well, actually, well, all right. So yeah, I think it would be the foreclosure, because I had a conversation. Well, one of the first foreclosures I ever looked up, because I was just looking at who's on the foreclosure list, how much time do we have?
Yeah.
Can we reach this seller? Can we help this seller avoid foreclosure? It actually ended up being someone that I knew. The very first one I looked up, I was
Wow.
like, this can't be the same person.
Yeah.
And come to find out, it was the same person. And I didn't know her well. I knew her from like 10 years ago or
Okay.
15 years ago, but I knew her well enough to where her phone number was still in my phone as a
Oh,
contact, which I was just like, this is crazy. But I learned a lot because, I learned a lot through recruiting and identifying people's motivations for making
mhm.
changes and making moves. And
Yeah.
so, of course, I knew her motivation of wanting to, resolve this because, the house was in foreclosure. But what I learned is there's a lot of other underlying things, and there's a
Mm,
lot of complexities that I wouldn't know unless I listened a lot. Right.
yeah.
So I listened a lot to her story. There were two people on the deed. His story versus her story are two different things. It's a couple that split. So it was
Oh,
kind of like, wow, I can appreciate everybody's position,
yeah.
but trying to navigate that in a way, remain composed, remain
Yeah.
compassionate, remain empathetic to the situation. It's like, well, you have to have a strategic patience with that because they ended up getting it out of foreclosure on their own, which is amazing because that was the goals. She ultimately wanted to stay there, but then it entered foreclosure again. So it's like, and we're working with her again
Okay.
and trying to, connect all the things, smooth
Yeah.
everything over with all the parties. And so
Yeah.
I think just like having that patience and doing what you're going to say and following up with people and just being, leaving a good enough impression for you to be their first call. And I
Yeah.
didn't know she was back in foreclosure. She called me the moment she got the notice on her door,
Wow.
several months later. And I was like, wow, that was cool. So I
Yeah,
think it's,
you're a trusted advisor.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
even though it hasn't come through yet, and it felt like it fell apart before,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot through that process. Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
That's a lot. Yeah, but like you said, being able to listen to people, I've learned that for sure. Where we get so much more when we just take the time to listen. Because they're
Yeah.
gonna, they'll unfold and reveal things on their own,
Hmm.
as they just feel more comfortable and like it's in a safe environment. And you're genuinely trying to help them. That's the key part that I think
Yeah.
people pick up on very easily. Like, are you
Hmm.
genuinely trying to help me or are you trying to take advantage of me?
Yeah,
So
and even if I'm not the best resource, and that's what I said, even if I'm not the best person to help you,
yeah,
I'll provide the help that I can in this scenario. And I've learned that people sometimes once they say things out loud, it's disarming in a lot of ways. And so they say all of these things and then they're ready for like the next phase of the conversation.
yeah,
So it's just like kind of just being a nice patient listener and
yeah.
helping where you
Yeah.
get wherever.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. Okay, so I think I know, but what's your most favorite part about your real estate business?
Well, the most favorite part is helping people along to the next phase of
Yeah,
whatever it may be. So similarly in my, decades of career, my favorite part about that is helping people along to their next opportunity.
yeah,
So a lot of people that I engage in that capacity, they're often passive. Um, they're passive candidates. They're not looking for a job. I'm reaching out to them saying, hey, this could be better for you. Similarly, when we're reaching out to sellers, whether it's reaching out to agents or reaching out to off market, it's saying, hey, would this work for you to help you along? Are you ready for like the next opportunity for you? And so a lot of times we're able to do that. And specifically, like with the foreclosure, not that that's our main thing, but I do enjoy helping people out of a tough spot and maybe
yeah.
into a better spot. And so I think that's probably the most, rewarding thing about real estate just in general.
Okay, so then on the flip side, what
Hmm.
is your least favorite part?
I would say my least favorite part is probably when people don't do what they say they're going to
Mm,
do, meaning if they don't follow up or if I have, of course, patience and things like that. But if someone's like a habitual not show up for appointment or, then, that's frustrating,
yeah,
but it doesn't happen often, but it happens. And
yeah.
that's probably my least favorite part.
Yeah, I find that to be so common because there are people, when it's like when I hold myself to a certain standard and then you see people just like consistently dropping the ball, it's agitating because you're like, I'm respecting you and your time.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that. Okay, so looking forward into the future, what goals are you currently pursuing in your business?
Yeah. So, what we'd like to do, at least over in the next 5 years, we'd like to have some more acquisitions, some more buy and holds wherever it makes sense.
Yeah,
Continue to expand just our real estate portfolio in general. Typically, single family homes is like where we'd like to stay, unless other opportunities come up. I mean, we certainly look at just about everything if it makes sense and is within our realm of expertise, but that and then expanding our complementary businesses. So as I mentioned before, we have 5 kids. My oldest is 29. So
yeah.
my daughter-in-law, she and I went ahead and pursued the transaction coordination
Oh, nice.
avenue with Pace's team. I'm not doing the transaction coordination because I know that's not like my strong suit.
Yeah.
but it's her strong suit, and I'm there to support her in
Oh,
doing that.
nice.
So what we've done is we've identified a bunch of opportunities that are nice little complementary businesses that could be big businesses that could help. We can all like work together as a
Oh,
family. And
yeah.
so that's been really exciting. So getting all of that, well, it's like getting off the ground now with three different companies, and it's fun and exciting because we all get to work together. And then
Yeah.
as our kids are interested, we engage them. So just having that like kind of running like a well-oiled machine in 5 years would be great.
Yeah. No, that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
Um, okay. So let's say you could go back to your 21-year-old self.
Mm.
What would you tell her that would save her time and money?
All right. So 21-year-old self that would save time and money. I would say to start a business sooner rather than later. Um, because I feel like, we've had several businesses, but you're still in a situation to where you're essentially selling a package of your time for an amount, right? So your annual salary is your 2,080 hours in a year is X amount of dollars, unless you're in a commission based role, which, you give yourself a raise. So I'd say get out of that situation sooner
Yeah.
of exchanging, even if it's like a base and a bonus, it's still just like a capped amount, which is suffocating,
Yeah.
So I do like the idea of commission or like increasing your deal flow and earnings through your activity. So
Yeah.
I would be like, do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah. No,
Mhm,
that's awesome advice.
mhm,
Okay. Now this one's fun.
mhm.
You're building, or you might have already started, but you're building your dream house, and you've got three key features that the general contractor asks you. What do you want in here for sure?
Oh, that's a fun question. So I would say a huge, huge island in the kitchen, huge island that can seat at least 8 to 10 people. And I also want like a prep kitchen behind it.
Oh,
So like the prep kitchen behind the main kitchen, and then the main kitchen having the biggest island that you could
yeah.
imagine. And that would make sense, but that everyone could fit around. So like if
Yeah.
we're cooking and talking and hanging out, that everyone can just kind of like be there.
Yeah.
And then it would have to be a killer master bathroom. And then the third thing is, and we're doing this in Portugal actually. The third thing is every bedroom
Uh-huh.
having a full bathroom in it. Every
Oh,
single one. Every single one.
nice.
Yeah, that's mandatory, especially when you have guests and it's
Yeah.
just kind of, my husband was like, oh, well, there'll be kid rooms. And I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
kids aren't always going to stay in there. So
Yeah.
every bedroom needs a full bathroom.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. Okay. What's the last show you binged?
Oh, the last show that I binged, man, I haven't really binged anything in a while. Probably, what is it called? Yellowstone. That's how
Oh,
old
okay.
it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably Yellowstone.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. Um, okay, so I guess to date, your proudest accomplishment.
Um, I would say probably getting that Portugal land deal done.
Okay.
Even real estate wise.
It could be in life, just
Oh,
in life, yeah.
oh gosh. Well, I mean, of course, the kids, but
I know.
outside of the kids and the grandkids, I'd say probably the Portugal deal, just
Okay.
because it was so long and
Yeah.
so difficult, and I learned a lot. So proud
Oh,
of the progress.
yeah. And between, I guess this is 2023. So, um, this year and last year, sometimes we have January resolutions, things like that. But between
Mhm.
this year and last year, how would you say that you've changed the most?
Hmm. Probably, I think I've changed the most by prioritizing like my mental health and like what I need to do and the things that I need to say no to.
Mhm.
So you can imagine with this big family, there's like a million things on the schedule, a million places to go. And I'm somebody who I like to be out and I like to be active, but I
Yeah.
also need like a day
Yeah.
of like not having to go anywhere, not having to be, on anybody else's schedule. And
Yeah.
so we used to run 7 days a week. So I'm like, I need either Sunday or Monday, like
Yeah.
depending on what's going on, like I need that day to
Yeah.
just like get myself organized for the upcoming week. And that's had a tremendous amount of value and made a huge impact.
That's awesome, and because
Mhm.
that's another question that I have, but you kinda answered that. I typically ask people, "To save your mental health, what have you been saying no to?"
Oh, yeah. So just like things that like hanging out to watch sports games or I don't know, just little things to where it's like if we I'd say things probably that my husband and I typically would do together because we do a lot together. But
Yeah.
if it's like we're gonna go there and if he's gonna be off like, doing the guy stuff like playing cornhole or playing
Yeah.
whatever,
Uh-huh.
cards or whatever, if it's going to be like a separate
Yeah.
situation, then I'm like, you go do that
I'll
and then
just sit
I'll
this
do
one out.
me. Yeah,
Yeah. You're
yeah.
like, "I'll just sit this one out."
And
Yeah.
it's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's really cool. Okay, let me scroll on down. I do love to ask people about the superpower. Sometimes people make them up, but what's
Oh,
a superpower that you would like to have?
so my superpower that I'd like to have or that I have? That I'd
That
like
you'd like to have?
Oh, so that I'd like to have.
Mhm.
Alright, so a superpower that I'd like to have. Hmm. I guess maybe more of an ability to, I don't know about see the future. Of course, see the future is always pretty cool,
Yeah,
but, maybe see because I feel like I kind of can. I can a little bit in some ways, but
yeah,
it'd be like, "Oh, it'd be nice if I saw that a little sooner." But yeah,
yeah,
probably that.
yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Now, as we're wrapping up, was there any question that stood out to you that you were like, "Oh, that was pretty I didn't expect that."
Well, I like the, question about the 3 things in
Oh, yeah.
the
The dream
house,
house.
the dream
Yeah,
house, and then I also like the mental health question that I ended up answering accidentally before you got
yeah.
to answer it, so I
I
like that question a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, I love that when you answered, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna ask that one next." But yeah, no, this was so fun, April. I definitely enjoyed interviewing you today. And I know you mentioned your socials already, but how can people add value to you?
Yeah, so it's at April Elias on all the socials. I also have my website, which is just aprilelias.com. It's under construction at the moment, but not for long. It's like
Okay,
nearly there. It's like
okay.
90% there. We took it down and we're refining some things, but that connects into all of the things. It's the
Oh,
easiest
nice.
place to figure out everything that's happening and how you can get connected.
Okay. And then if people wanna work with you, how can they work with you? How can they add value to you? What action steps can they take?
Sure, they can just reach out to me directly. We certainly do a lot around, the Gator stuff for sure.
Mhm,
So EMD, gap lending or gap
mhm.
funding, things like that. And we're always willing to open to look at deals, whether it's wholesale, buy and hold, sub two, anything creative. We are open to doing as well as outside of real estate. We do a little bit of that as well, but that's how if people are looking for buyers or some help to get more deals done,
Yeah,
we can certainly help with that. And then on the reverse, if anyone needs help with any type of like, so what actually that should have been my superpower is my investigating as far as like if sourcing, investigating, researching, outreach, anything like that. If people are like, oh, I have trouble connecting with sellers or what to say to sellers, I've really refined, a few like interview questions. I call it intakes and interviews with
yeah,
like they from hiring managers and candidates. We can take that same strategy and use it with sellers and agents, and
nice.
it's worked beautifully. So I'm happy to help anybody in that regard, or even source lists for them because I do have a little bit of a hacking
Oh,
hacking
nice.
power. So
Oh,
yeah.
nice. And I know you mentioned holding. So can you let people know where you wanna hold properties? Because they can bring those to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm local in Delaware. So I'd only hold it'd be a special scenario if I held in Delaware because it's not landlord friendly here in
Okay,
Delaware.
okay,
But we're so small. Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Jersey. Delaware
okay,
is just 100 miles. So that borders us. Anything at our beach towns, Delaware beaches, Jersey beaches, or Maryland beaches. But I'm also open to Florida and Tennessee and
okay.
Oklahoma. So because we often go and Colorado, so we often visit those places. So we have people on the ground there that can go out and walk properties for us or do things in person. So
Yeah.
those would be the key areas that we'd be able to get things done comfortably.
Okay. Okay,
Mhm.
awesome. So, well, guys, you heard it. So let's connect with April. I'll have all of her socials linked down below, as well as any other information that she wants you guys to have. But April, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Cassandra. I enjoyed it as well.